There's different philosophies in ownership. You know what I mean? Some owners kind of stay away. You know, it's not fun. Those meetings aren't, I wouldn't characterize them as fun meetings.
Carolina Panthers are in so much trouble. I mean, I kind of had a feeling that this was going to be their reality. I just didn't think that they were going to be the worst team in the NFL, which is so much worse when you think about it. Before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Now that we get all that out of the way, break! Ladies and gentlemen, every time PrizePicks has done this, it's practically been free money for us. For the opening weeks of the NFL season, we've had a lot of success on PrizePicks. I've been showing you guys my picks on Instagram, and I post my picks there for free consistently at The Flight Mike. And typically, you need to at least make 2 correct picks in order to make money. But in this case, PrizePicks is giving us a free Steph Curry square. Steph Curry only needs 1 point in order for his square to convert. So we just need to get 1 pick right at minimum to make money here. So if you're an NFL fan, I'm looking at Tyreek Hill scoring a touchdown versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And if you're an NBA fan, I'm looking at Michael Porter Jr. to grab more than 5.5 rebounds. Make sure you use my promo code Mikerophone to get a $100 deposit match when you sign up at PrizePicks. This is easily my favorite promo of the year. We've had a lot of success with it in the past. I'm going to show you additional picks on my Instagram story. And thank you, PrizePicks, for the sponsor. Mike check 1212. What's going on, everybody? Yes, I'm wearing Carolina Panthers blue today for a reason. Back in the summer, the Carolina Panthers decided enough is enough. We don't want to see Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield at the quarterback position. We don't even want to give Matt Corral an opportunity. We don't want the revolving door at head coach. We want all of our questions to be resolved. Who is going to be our QB of the future? Who is going to be our head coach moving forward? Is it somebody that is a proven head coach in the NFL? So far, at least at the time, I felt like the Carolina Panthers made all the right decisions. I felt like trading Christian McCaffrey in the middle of the season last year was the right move. I mean, given the fact that he's already been on your roster for 5.5 seasons, and typically a running back going into his age 27 season is perceived to be a running back that is past his prime in this NFL, I thought it was a brilliant decision by the Carolina Panthers. Not to say it was a bad decision by the San Francisco 49ers, I just understood the philosophy. I felt like hiring Frank Reich was a brilliant idea. A head coach that truly has proven himself, in my opinion, but has never had a true franchise quarterback moving forward to really build an offense around. Felt like signing Miles Sanders was a little questionable, but I understood the philosophy behind it. I love the idea of bringing in Adam Thielen, but the one thing I really didn't like, probably more than anything else, was their trade in the offseason. You see, in the offseason, the Carolina Panthers decided to swing a huge trade for the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, trading the 9th overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft, the 61st pick in the 2023 NFL draft, a first-round pick in 2024, a second-round pick in 2025, and DJ Moore to move up to the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft. At the time, it wasn't really as devastating of a trade when you really just understood that this was a team that was going to be without its first pick in 2024 and probably the most valuable player on its roster, especially for a brand new quarterback. Regardless, I understood the philosophy behind this trade. This was a result of Frank Reich undergoing significant amounts of psychological trauma after being the Indianapolis Colts head coach. You see, when Frank Reich was hired as the Colts head coach, he thought he was pulling up to coach Andrew Luck, a quarterback that has proven to us to be a transcendent talent and the greatest NFL prospect since Peyton Manning. And that was with Chuck Pagano as his head coach. That was with a defensive-minded head coach. And to Frank Reich's credit, Andrew Luck in his lone season with him was masterful. Had the second most prolific season of his career, threw for over 4,500 passing yards, 39 touchdowns, and 15 interceptions. And then, in a blink of an eye, Andrew Luck retires. Next thing you know, Frank Reich is coaching Phillip Rivers, then Frank Reich is coaching Carson Wentz, then Frank Reich is coaching God knows who in the middle of the season last year, and it would just get worse and worse and worse. So I understood Frank Reich coming into this brand new situation probably made it clear that that he needed to have a franchise quarterback under center. The way they went about getting this franchise quarterback is my problem. You see, if you had the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft to start and you didn't need to trade up for that #1 overall pick, then I would have no problem with you selecting either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. It's the concept of completely emptying your team of assets to move up to the #1 overall spot to select a quarterback, putting that QB in a very bad situation for his rookie season, and then once things get hard, start deflecting blame to others. Throughout the season, we started getting some red flags. About a month ago, we got this report that the Panthers can't use the QB sneak play in their playbook because Bryce Young isn't big enough to make that work, according to ESPN. In an article to ESPN, it says that the biggest hole in the game plan for the Panthers is their inability to use the QB sneak in 3rd and short because of Bryce Young's 5'10", 204-pound frame. Panthers can't use the quarterback sneak because Young is 5'10" and 204 pounds, and he's just not big enough to make that work. It's really funny because at the time I was thinking, okay, so what? There's so many teams that don't use the QB sneak. And then you see how much the brotherly shove or the tush push has been taking over the NFL this year. I don't know if it's going to be a thing for the future, and I can understand why this is a problem for the Carolina Panthers. But that aside, recently, Frank Reich has been implying that Bryce Young wasn't the person that he wanted. Now, bear in mind, this is an implication. It could just be the media taking a narrative and distorting it to its liking. Because so far, throughout this young NFL season, CJ Stroud has looked like a baller. I mean, he broke the record for most passing attempts without an interception, which recently was set because he threw his first interception over this past week. It's been even more impressive considering the fact that his offensive line has been battered and bruised at times, especially against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He went in there with a replacement O-line practically against TJ Watt in that Steelers pass rush and still came out with a productive day. He makes lightning quick decisions and he throws surgically precise throws to his wide receivers, often hitting them in stride, by the way. So a lot of people are saying that the Carolina Panthers made a mistake by selecting Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. And I guess as a result, this interview with Frank Reich isn't looking so good.
There's different philosophies in ownership. You know what I mean? Some owners kind of stay away and don't engage a whole lot. Other owners do. And his philosophy is he's going to engage. And listen, it's only been a short experience, but it's been a really good experience. It hasn't been fun. You know, it's not fun. Those meetings aren't, I wouldn't characterize them as fun meetings. But those meetings make me better, and I trust they make us better.
So at this point, there's an implication that the Carolina Panthers owner, David Tepper, wanted Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. If you remember, during the offseason, Bryce Young was getting all of the hype because he went to Alabama, because he won a Heisman, and a lot of people overlooked the lack of size because, well, Kyler Murray is short. And since Kyler Murray is 5'10" and 207 pounds, and he's had success in the NFL, which a lot of people tend to forget that Kyler Murray's a good QB. Now that the Cardinals are having a bad season, people are wondering if the Cardinals would be willing to move on from Kyler Murray, but he is a very talented QB, and there's no denying that. I guess a lot of people overlooked Bryce Young's lack of size. We've seen smaller quarterbacks succeed before, so there was no question that Bryce Young was always the guy #1 overall, right? Well, there's this clip from the pre-draft process that is really making its way throughout the NFL community right now. You remember when the quarterback coach of the Carolina Panthers, Josh McCown, said this to CJ Stroud?
We'll find a court. Play some horses.
It's right here. Come on.
Okay. Well,
How
no,
long you
maybe
got? I got to do a little
meeting.
Charlotte.
We'll find a court. All right. See you, buddy.
Now I'm going to take his money.
He's making an implication that the Panthers made a decision that CJ Stroud is the guy. In this pre-draft process, I do think Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud was a coin flip. I mean, on one hand, you had a player with prototypical QB size who comes out of a university that is notorious for having quarterback prospects that busted, that has tremendous wide receiver talent throughout his collegiate career. Whenever you have a player like that, a lot of teams are going to be grading you a little bit more harshly, but at the same time, you have another QB in a similar position, a quarterback that comes from a historically dominant offense that also played with substantial wide receivers, that has won a Heisman and is a bit undersized. I mean, in my opinion, you could have gone either way here, but I don't think the problem here is necessarily the fact that the Panthers chose Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. I think the difference is the situations that both of these players are put in. You see, about 4 days ago, the Carolina Panthers decided to try to simplify things for Bryce Young, saying that the Panthers Panthers are simplifying things for first overall pick QB Bryce Young, including cutting down on verbiage. When you look at some of the other rookies, like Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud, they get to the line, they snap the ball, and they run the play. With Bryce Young, it's like everything else. It's protection, it's adjustments, it's a lot. It does seem like it's been too much. When you are not able to understand what's in front of you, when you are unsure, it makes you play slower and look slower. You've seen some of the things other rookies go out and really look like they're thriving immediately. Now they've pulled back a lot. It's time for Young to really play and begin the process to show why they had drafted him. I think there's a lot more issues than just Bryce Young, because we've had historically dominant rookie QBs that have had teams give up significant amount of assets for that have failed in their careers. Now, the number one player that comes to mind is RG3. RG3 dealt with an injury, so if he didn't get injured, would he have had a much more successful career? It's very difficult to say, because the Redskins gave up 3 first-round picks for RG3. With the simplified verbiage and whatnot, Bryce Young went out and played his worst game of his career versus the Atlanta Falcons. So now it looks like the Panthers are trying to figure out what to do here. More recently, it seems like Frank Reich is blaming himself. Frank Reich informed players today that he has decided to hand over play calling duties to offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, so maybe that is the problem with the Carolina Panthers right now. If you ask me, I personally think it's a combination of things. I think on one hand, if you ever see a prospect that you like at the number 1 overall pick, bro, you knew Bryce Young was probably going to be the number 1 or number 2 pick. Tank! I'm sorry to say, tank! I mean, giving up DJ Moore and the number 1 overall pick in next year's NFL draft in what is supposed to be a historic quarterback class is not the answer. I mean, the amount of assets that they gave up for Bryce Young is insane to begin with. But the crazy thing is, you put any quarterback in this situation, and I'm pretty confident that they would struggle immediately. Bryce Young's best wide receiver is a past his prime Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen's a great locker room guy to maybe give some wisdom to younger wide receivers. He's not supposed to be your number 1 guy. I felt like this was doomed to start to begin with, and I don't directly think it's Bryce Young, because there are moments where I'm watching Bryce Young's film and he's making the right decisions. A lot of times, I just feel like Bryce Young's wide receivers fail to separate, and the plays that they're running just take so long to develop. And it's okay to have these type of plays when your offensive line is successful, which for some reason the Carolina Panthers offensive line has been suspect to say the least this year, and if you have talented wide receivers like Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. But in the case of Bryce Young, it seems like he is the only player on offense and everything is on his shoulders, and since he's not able to get anything going for himself, a lot of people are pointing the blame finger at him. At the end of the day, I feel like the Carolina Panthers have been doomed to fail, and the worst part is the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft this year is going to go to the Chicago Bears. So you traded the 9th pick, the 61st pick, the number 1 overall pick in this year's NFL draft that features Caleb Williams, that everyone is saying is the next coming of Patrick Mahomes. You're giving up all of that to select Bryce Young, who's failing because the pieces around him are not pieces you want to give a quarterback for him to be successful. At the end of the day, I'll tell you one rebuild that I feel very strongly about, and that's the Detroit Lions rebuild. I absolutely loved this rebuild. They trade away Matthew Stafford for multiple first-round picks and Jared Goff. What do they start doing with those picks? I mean, the very first piece of that rebuilding team was Penei Sewell. You're supposed to build from the inside and then out. You're supposed to put the pieces in place, then get your quarterback that's on a rookie scale contract. And then you can take advantage of your quarterback that's on a rookie scale contract. You could go out and get yourself some nice free agents and really put that QB in a position where he's being underpaid and to win you a Super Bowl. The Panthers did the opposite here. By the time Bryce Young has a good team around him, that's when he's going to expect a contract extension. I don't see it working. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, because I understand the psychology of this. I understand that the Panthers wanted an answer at the QB position as soon as possible because they've been searching for the answer since Cam Newton's initial departure. I understand that Frank Reich was tired of going after QB after QB after QB after QB and then being blamed for the fact that the teams weren't performing. I understand all of that. I'm just saying the way that they went about it was a mistake, especially considering the incoming QB class. I think they should have stood pat at the number 9 overall pick. Maybe select Darnell Wright or Peter Skoronski or honestly any other position. Understand that this year wasn't going to be their year, and then throw a dart at the dartboard in next year's NFL draft where there's a plethora of QB talent. This is not to say that Bryce Young can't still be successful. I just think he
he was placed in a very, very tough position, and the Panthers are already pointing the blame finger at one another. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. Whose fault is this entire situation? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.